So good to have with us Graham Sherman. I'm going to introduce Graham in just a moment, properly, as they say. Before we do that, I'm just going to throw up a couple of things on my screen here so we can just do a proper introduction, and then we'll dive right in. This is Business Resilience Now, and we've been spending a lot of time here. I know many of you followed along either on Facebook or on Zoom with some strategies, some tips from some really smart people, much smarter than me, good news, for resilience. And I think we all know that COVID has been tough, right, to say the least. We'll talk about that. But, there are ways to be resilient even in the midst of this massive, massive challenge. And so we've got one of the best on our webinar today. And if you're following us on Facebook Live, please share this, rate it to your feed, because we want to get the word out to as many people as we can. We're not selling anything today, unless you want to hop on down to Graham's brewery and grab a case of something. I don't know if that's allowed, but we're not selling anything. We're, I guess, beyond just selling hope and selling real life solutions, real world stories. But before we do that, as many of you know, I love my memes. And so I've been maybe a little memeing too much when it comes to COVID, but I found a few more, believe it or not. We all know that COVID has changed a lot of things. I just love this one here. Remember at the start of January, everyone's like, 2020, it's my year. And then COVID shows up, right? Guess what, mofos, It's changed a lot. But not only has it changed a lot of people's business plans, it's changed a lot of relationships. I'm not sure how people meet someone anymore in a COVID environment. I mean, do you have a bunch of hand sanitizer, carry a bunch of wipes with you? I'm not exactly sure. I love this one here. It's also changed interactions with the law. And when you look at that meme, you can't tell me you haven't thought about it. I sure have. I've thought, if the cops pull me over for speeding, I'm going to throw a sign up, I've got coronavirus, right? And maybe I'll get off as a result of that. But it's also changed fitness for some folks. And I think fitness is a challenge for some folks in the middle of COVID-19. I've seen some folks report this. Some of you guys remember Thor in the earlier episodes of the Avengers and working from home day 2, maybe day 20. But some people said I've learned some things in the last few weeks when it comes to, COVID and coronavirus. I've learned it's a novel virus. I've learned the mortality rate is maybe 3%. Who knows? It's transmitted a lot like the flu. But also the elderly and those with immune systems are most compromised. And I love touching my face because so many people, touching their face all the time. And apparently that's not good for you. But it's also impacted coronavirus, our faith in one another. I just love this. The spread of coronavirus is based on 2 factors. Number 1, how dense the population is. Number 2, how dense the population is. And then somebody responding, you wrote the same thing twice. What's the other one? Well, you get it. And so I'm not going to explain it. But, in all truth, COVID-19 has changed our world. We've been having this conversation every week since it started, literally the week actually before we went into lockdown here in Alberta. We started this Business Resilience Now webinar. We haven't tried to be the solution. I think that, at the end of the day, solution is always about conversations. It's always about learning from people who have maybe done a bit more than you, accomplished a bit more than you, and yet are in the same kind of boat, right? Because it's not about levels. COVID has been a great equalizer. And so right now it's about survival and it's about resilience. And so, I'm really excited today to introduce to you Graham Sherman. There's his lovely picture. You can see him in the screen, and here's his bio. He's got a great bio, and I know that many of you have read it. I'm not going to read it word for word, but, clearly Graham comes to his passion as an entrepreneur, in my view, authentically. He's not a guy who went to business school and tried to figure it out that way, though he may have done lots of education. But when you're out there in the back shed brewing beer, you know that there's something about entrepreneurship that's pushing you and it's driving you, and to see how they continue to thrive even in the middle of this. And so, I'm going to shut this screen off. because I want you to be able to see lots and lots of Graham over the next few minutes. And welcome, Graham. Thanks for doing this, man.
Of course. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
That's so cool. So tell me, like, where are you right now? I love the background.
Yeah. I'm at the brewery right now. And if you want me to give you a quick run through? I'll give you a quick minute here to run through the brewery.
I'd love that. I would love
Might as
the
well,
rundown.
So let's turn it around here. And what's kind of neat is usually, like, I do a lot of public speaking, but never at the brewery. I never get to come in and say, right here, this is the original homebrew system that was from my backyard tool shed, stolen Big Rock kegs. So, I went on a brewery tour at Big Rock and tried to buy some kegs and to start homebrewing. And they, of course, said no. And so I'm like, well, now I got to steal them. And so I had a getaway driver and everything. And the real cool thing is being able to share the story of, having some fun with your buddy in the backyard tool shed brewing beer, and then trying to turn it, into what we have here now, which is an incredible state-of-the-art system, all made in Canada. It's it's a pretty darn cool system. So it's I'll tell you, getting up on this brew stand, and today we're brewing a real special beer. It's our passion fruit blonde, and it's one of my personal favorite beers for summer. And it's too bad we don't have smell-o-vision, because this right here is amazing. But it's oftentimes that I sit and I look up in this field of fermenters, and it's pretty crazy thinking back to what it took to get to the stage that we're at. And it's a lot of times people come into this facility and they're like, oh, look at this, these guys are well funded. And truly, the story of Tool Shed is we've never had anything. We've never had I'm gonna turn this back around here. Thanks, buddy. Sorry, we've we've never oops, let me turn this back around here. One sec. There we go. Yeah, it's I think the entrepreneurial story that is really cool is that we're just IT nerds. I know I'm just a random IT guy that met my co-founder while working in Afghanistan, working on government and military projects. And along the way, you go, I just love making beer so much. This is the coolest thing on earth. What if we didn't have to go back to Afghanistan and work on these government and military infrastructure projects? What if we could follow our dream and start the business? That's how every entrepreneur starts. And then a series of seemingly insurmountable barriers and brick walls that you have to get through to pull this off. Because we never had any money. We bootstrapped everything from scratch. So it's cool to be able to do this talk from in the brewery. So I appreciate you letting me do this and showing you kind of the system here.
I just love it. I just love it so much, Graham. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's really cool, because I bet you there's a lot of folks who've never been inside a brewery like that. So tell us about the business, pre-COVID, so people understand the story, kind of how you guys got started and the success that you got to, and then be kind of cool from there to go into after COVID,
Perfect. Yeah. Well, the real story about Tool Shed is when we got started. Like I said, I'm my actual education is I'm a pilot, so I didn't even have the education for the job I did, but I'm a high tech nerd. So I'm working on these contracts over in Afghanistan for the U.S. Marine Corps, the Canadian troops, and all these types of projects. And but when I'm home, I nerd out with my hobby. So I love coffee. I got a coffee roaster that's so badass it's got like PID temperature controllers and a comms port, so I can access it from outside the network. And barbecuing is a huge passion of mine. I actually was very fortunate to get to go to the World Championships this year of barbecue. That's an actual thing. There's a big competitive circuit, and along with Rocky Mountain Smokers, we went to the Jack Daniels Invitational World Championships of barbecue this year, and took home an international top team award for chicken. So pretty awesome. The reason that we barbecue, pretty cool, right? But the reason that we barbecue so well is I don't just barbecue. I've got 9 barbecues, and they all have I run Cat 6 cable to them. They're encrypted, so you can't hack into my ribs. But again, PID temperature controllers, and I actually have a setup where there's a probe in the ambient air, probe in the meat, and I got an algorithm looking at the differential of those two set points, and it'll tweet you, and it'll say, hey, if you're coming over for dinner tonight, dinner will be ready at 6:30. Because that algorithm looks at that differential of those two set points and says, based on this current cook, here's when the ribs will be ready. You can even log in. I can give you administrative access to log in and see the ribs and control the fan that's blowing on the coals. It's pretty cool.
That's
And
wild.
along the way, I think that what we realized was that we're just, I'm definitely just that, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? But at the heart of it is I love service. I love hosting. I love having people over, and I love taking my hobbies way too far. So if you came over for coffee, you'd say, damn it, that's the best cup of coffee. You don't realize that in my basement is this huge roasting operation, this freaking roaster I brought home from Italy, right? It's insane. But more importantly to me, I want you to hang out and share good times and good stories over good coffee or over good barbecue. And beer is the ultimate catalyst to bring great people together and share good times and good stories. So you know, the moment we started brewing in my backyard tool shed, it was obvious that this is I think the pinnacle of what my passion for, like I say, for service and for hosting and for fellowship is. This is a great thing. The first time you make a great beer and you see what great beer does to the community around you, it's pretty awesome. You realize people don't really give a shit about coffee and ribs. Beer brings people together. So it was pretty darn cool to see that impact, right? So going after the dream and saying, I'm going to start this thing. I think we could pull this off. We looked at the market. There was no breweries. And there was like 120 breweries in BC at the time. This is 2012. 150 breweries in Ontario. And Calgary had 2.
Wow.
Right? We had Big Rock and Wild Rose, and that's it. So, you know, as somebody who's thinking about starting a business, I'm like, what a great opportunity. There's no breweries. This will be great. We'll kill it. Turns out what we didn't realize is that there was laws in the province prohibiting starting breweries. And so, yeah, a little market research next time before I quit my job, my good paying government and military job to go after a hobby that's illegal in the province. So the laws at the time were, yeah, that was an awesome conversation to have with my wife. I'm like, so, love you, babe. Let me out. Yeah. But it's, the laws at the time were, you couldn't even apply to be a brewery in the province unless you could show the government that you could brew 500,000 liters of beer a year or more. And that's absolutely insane. That's this size of a brewery. And to put in perspective, this brewery now, size-wise, is in the top 5% of breweries in North America. Wow. And so you had to have built this and then applied to try to brew beer. So totally ridiculous. So what really spurred me on and what really grew my passion and what really put, I think, a burden of entrepreneurial responsibility on my shoulders was I didn't even realize at the time that the greatest barley on earth comes from this part of the world. And it started to really sink in that, can you imagine going to Napa Valley and saying, wow, what a cool place. Look at all these beautiful vineyards. Not allowed to make wine here. That's so really realistically what was going on in Alberta. And I don't know, it just seems like the Canadian way that we just apologize for the things that we do so well. And one of the things that we do better than anyone on earth is the greatest barley on the planet for beer comes from right here in Alberta. So, you know, I deliver beer every night on my way home. And the other day I was driving home with my son. I looked off into the field and there's all these tractors. They're seeding right now. And I know the fields. I know the breweries that buy the barley from these fields. And so I'm like, buddy, detour. And we went right through the field and pulled up to these combine or these seeders. And we're like, you guys, we're so fortunate that I'm on my way home and right beside, and I live in Calgary, right down by Seton Hospital there is some of the greatest fields that goes to breweries all over the world. So if you know about craft beer down in the States, Sierra Nevada, New Belgium, Oscar Blues, Lagunitas, Dogfish Head, as far away as Sapporo. So for me, I'm like, all the best breweries are coming here to buy this barley and we can't brew with it here?
Yeah. So how did
That's
that law get
completely apt.
changed?
So this was a part of the journey of, we got to get these laws changed.
Yeah. And how did that law get
Yeah. So
changed?
what
Did you
we did
guys?
was, we knew we couldn't fight the government. There was people. Yeah. What we ended up doing was, we knew we couldn't change the law. So we actually said, if we can't change the law, everybody else left and started their brewery somewhere else, or gave up on the dream. So I said, well, if I can't brew beer here, can I import beer? And the Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission said, yep, no problem. I said, perfect. I want to apply to be an import agency, and I'm only going to bring in beer that uses Alberta barley, and I'm going to make a big noise. And they said, no problem. So I changed my whole business plan, and I got an import license. And the moment I got that license, I drove out to BC. I found a brewery just outside of Vancouver that let me brew my beer in their facility. So I started this business by exporting Alberta barley across the border, so I could drive across the border, brew with it, drive back home, and then freaking import my own beer back into the province. Like, how ridiculous is that, right? But that's what it took. And actually, the best part about that was, it allowed me to go to the media. I went to the newspapers and CBC and CTV News and anyone who would listen. And the real secret was, I wasn't talking about my beer and my brewery. I was talking about Alberta. This was 2012. So we were screwed in oil and gas. We were in a huge decline. And why aren't we thinking about economic development in other verticals? Agriculture is the second biggest contributor to GDP in our country. Why aren't we diversifying with the greatest natural resource our province has? It's not oil. It's the best barley on earth. So I just got so loud and proud about these farmers who are out in the fields working 30 hours a day, thanklessly, not getting any appreciation locally for being the best in the world at what they do. So yeah, we a year of driving out, brewing, driving back out to package, driving back. I still drive the same Toyota Tacoma. It's out front. It's almost got 600,000 kilometers on it. And after a year of doing it, we were able to impact change. And AGLC, December 2013, said, okay. And they said, no more minimum brewing requirement. And they tweeted us out that day and said, congratulations, Tool Shed. So huge honor to have been a part of that change. Ultimately, what the outcome is, we went 12 breweries province-wide at that time to over almost to 150, I think now.
Wow.
And every one of them is using Alberta barley. Every one of them is hiring Albertans. That money's staying in this province. It's promoting economic development. Like, the Canadian Conference Board has put out recent reports showing just how shocked they are at what local beer support does for the local economy. So it's pretty cool to have been a part of that. For the rest of my life, I get to have had an impact on the craft beer community. I know I wasn't the only one, but I also know that what it took was genuine, authentic passion towards a change that the whole community around said, yeah, we're behind that. And that's why it works, right?
I just love that. That's so good, Graham. So then you're up and running. Your sales are good. You're making a difference, winning awards, and then COVID happens, right? And
Yeah.
and so what kind of impact has that had on you guys?
Well, right off the bat, we've gone through so many challenges along the way. Anybody here who has started a business or is entrepreneurial knows that you are just in a world of hitting brick walls. And every time you do, if you truly exercise that entrepreneurial part of your brain, you find ways past it. And if I can reference that slide you put up earlier, that everything's been done and we learn best from people that have done things before us, I would challenge that and say, some of the time what we found is we got to find ways that have never been done before. Sometimes there's just, we got to points along this way where we hit the brick wall so bad. I needed $500,000. I had no ability to raise equity for the business. And I had 3 mortgages on my home and they were all in foreclosure. And if I didn't come up with $500,000, I would have ruined the lives of everyone who believed in me and built, this business with me and invested. And so I went to bed at night and just cried all night. Like I'm laying in my bed at 3 a.m. crying when the epiphany happens and you go, okay, I think I could do something that's never been done. And can't raise 500 grand if you have no equity to give away or no debt to work with. But I came up with this, what if I could find 100 people, charge them 5 grand a piece, and I'd give them beer for life. And right, like, so if I pitch you that now, it's easy because I got the brewery. You'd say I'm in. But back then, I'm this crappy little IT nerd ginger running around the street saying, I promise I'll get it done in 2 years. But I'm trying to raise money this way. And we did it. Now almost every brewery has a crowdsourcing approach like that to breweries, but it hadn't been done like that before. So coronavirus to me really was, as soon as it happened, I said, here we go again. And that was my first comment was, you know, this is the life of the entrepreneur. And I truly believe that what coronavirus has done is shown the rest of the world what it's like to be an entrepreneur. You cannot foresee things like this happening. You wake up in the morning and you open your eyes and you go, okay, what great is going to happen and what's going to try to put me out of business today? You could never have guessed coronavirus was going to happen. So I went through a real dark initial phase of really like all of the things we've overcome and a cold is going to wipe us out. Like I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't have any reference on what, oh, sorry, people are trying to call me. I had no frame of reference on how bad this was or what was actually going on. And I just thought, oh, cold? That's what's going to sink this business? It was horrifying. But the government shut all of my customers down.
Yeah.
So you can imagine our sales plummeted to zero.
Yeah.
This facility costs $250,000 a month to operate. That's my burn every month. And our sales plummeted to zero. Everything shut down. And the government shut down bars, restaurants, pubs, you know, I mean, everything. And I don't know. It's like, what can you do? There's no way that you can fathom, here's what I'll do, you know, when the seemingly insurmountable brick wall of the government shut us down and all of our customers. How are we going to do it? And I was joking with somebody the other day. I was like, there's got to be a stat out there, something along the lines of 99% of businesses go out of business in their first year when the government shuts them down. Something along those lines. But how can you survive? Yeah. And so what I found was everybody got very quickly stuck in this concept of trying to one down each other. I'm referring to it as. It wasn't a one-upmanship. It was, oh, you got it that bad? Check my shit out. Like, look, I got it way worse. And this one downmanship mentality is not doing anybody any favors. And so for me, I'm like, I got to snap out of it, get up at that 3 a.m. sob session moment again and just go, you know, who's killing it out there? Because not everybody's suffering. Who's killing it? And for me, one of the first things I thought of was food delivery, right? Because we're all at home, we're all trying to socially distance, we're all trying to quarantine. And if we could get food delivered to our homes, how amazing would that be, right? And so companies like Spud.ca, amazing local company, they're right down the block from us here. And last summer, we worked with them to get their liquor license so they could deliver Tool Shed beer because they're neighbors of ours. They're on the same block. So I thought, I don't know, maybe a collaborative connection with a local company. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I got to reach out to them and see how they're doing. And of course, first phone call, they said, oh, we're so screwed. We can't even come close to keeping up with all the orders. And they're saying, we could probably do another 1,000 orders a day if we had an extra 8,000 square feet. They didn't have enough room for the pallets of food needed to make all the orders happen in Alberta. And they didn't have enough cold room space. They didn't have enough vehicles to deliver food or staff. And I thought, great, anything else? Because I've got all that. So my facility that wasn't able to be utilized for beer production, what if I could convert it? And who the freaking heck would have ever thought into my business plan it would have been, okay, if everything goes to shit, we'll make food for Spud, right? And so we opened up an 8,000 square foot chunk of our facility. We gave them our 1,500 square foot cold room. We brought staff back off of EI. And we started putting together these essential food packs that were going out to frontline workers and healthcare professionals and people that just needed food deliveries. And we got an assembly line going of working with another local great company. So that in itself um, turned into so much creativity and the culture internally in our staff that remain. We have a core 4 staff group that just said, you know what else we could do, and you know what else, and you know what else, and it just snowballed into this really awesome, encouraging, just outside of the box thinking that all of a sudden there's a local concept. What if we put a box together with Spud that was all about the great local businesses in this city? Phil and Sebastian Coffee, and I love, King's Wonton. So what about that Heavenly Hot Sauce? And what about, there's so many great businesses. Let's start utilizing our relationship with Spud and getting all these great local products out to, so it was just a change in that frame of thinking that I think had to happen. And now with the way I look at how we're operating now, our costs are cut way down. We've been forced to, really look at every single cost. We've looked at every single square foot of space in this place to see if we're generating revenue from it. We're looking for collaborative relationships to do that. This is what we should have been doing before coronavirus. So I don't want to say I'm looking at it positively, that coronavirus is anything but a negative for what it's done, but truly the frame of thinking, that perspective of, we can certainly look at it as coronavirus may have saved my business.
Yeah.
How
Well, no,
hectic of a thought is that, right?
yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And, in listening to you, like, it's interesting because, it reminds me of another entrepreneur who was on the call a few weeks ago, who has 3 restaurants in our city, locally owned, locally operated. They source a lot of local food and organic stuff and local,
Yep.
all of that. And when this thing happened, it sounded like he almost went through the same process, which is, number one, you're like, holy shit, like this, like, and the stress response kind
Yeah.
of takes over. But then, like you said, it's like, I gotta start getting back up again at 3 a.m. It's almost like I need to get my mental health under control. And then when I
Yeah.
do, it's like, okay, now I can start to do some strategy. And the strategy doesn't all come from you. It's like the team, it's like community. It's like, how do we collaborate? So talk
Mm.
about that. Cause if you had a different mental state, you probably wouldn't be where you are right now.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And so I'm a bit of a weird person in that I take on challenges that I think should be impossible, just to prove to myself that I can do them. And if, for example, just to give an example, I'll bet someone, I'll say I can go do Ironman with no training. So that's 4-kilometer swim and 180K bike ride and then a marathon. And I can't swim and I don't ride that far and I've never run a marathon. So I went and I did it. And of course you can get across the line. It sucks. And you're climbing that mountain on your bike and you're going, I might die. This is bad. And you're like, I'm not going to die. Keep riding, you wuss. And you get across that finish line and you go, this is amazing. And so, last fall, I was kind of falling into this rut. I had just bought out all of my business partners at Tool Shed, and the business was really in a tough place. And we were fighting hard last year to turn the business around. And I knew that I just was I needed to sharpen my mindset. And I really started to enjoy trail running. And that's where I can go out. And I think the best way to put it is I suffer alone. And as an entrepreneur, there is a lot of pain associated with what we go through. And so I hit the mountain and I run. I almost run angry, but not really. I embrace the pain of what trail running is. And I get some time to think and I distill my thoughts. I'm not distracted. It's a really great mental exercise for me, going out and running on a mountain. And there's something about a mountain too, that running on is amazing. So I
I hear you.
signed up for a 200-kilometer ultra marathon in the Colorado Rockies up in elevation. And my wife was crying. She's like, you're going to die. And doctors would say, there's no way you can run 200K up at that elevation. You're going to get elevation sickness. There's all this bad stuff and you're going to break your feet. And man, I got to that. I was pretty fearful at that starting line because there's no way I should have been able to do it. And
Amazing.
if you saw my feet, it's disgusting. But you get up in the morning and your knees are blown up and your feet hurt. All of the things that say you should not be able to accomplish this thing.
Yeah.
And then what you do is you just don't stop running.
Yes.
So I force myself through these exercises. My wife hates it, and she goes, "You can do it without destroying your body. Like, do some mental exercises. You don't necessarily have to lose all your toenails. It's disgusting." She hates
Yeah.
my feet
Yeah.
so bad. But that mentality is what I bring into the business. It's horrifying to think about the mindset when coronavirus started. And if you look at when people go through real tragedy, they go through these uh, predictable steps. And I'm sure there's a lot of psychologists that would say you go through fear and then anger and then acceptance and then all those things. But the one step they're missing afterwards is just doing epic shit. Like, I get it, go through that process of grieving and then go, okay, enough of that shit. Got it out of my system. Now let's go do something that's never been done. My favorite moment now is when I wake up after that grieving process that you go through when you hit these brick walls, and everybody gets scared and everybody goes through that horrifying stuff. But I don't know if everybody knows that there's that extra gear afterwards where you go, okay, let's get creative. Let's do something that maybe's never been done before. And every time you pull it off, man, we pulled it off with changing the laws. We pulled it off getting beer into the Stampede. We pulled it off with that 500,000 beer for life. And every time you do it, you get better at accessing that spot in your mind and going back to the well for more ideas. So as soon as these things come up now, coronavirus was one that scared the hell out of me. I thought we were done, and got through the process, and then thought, okay, let's do something freaking awesome. Let's do some epic shit.
That's so great, man. That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great. So tell me, like, as you're, moving forward, what are the biggest challenges you feel like you're facing right now?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's an unknown. The fear of the unknown, I think, is inherent in all of us. So I feel like I'm starting a business from scratch. So my business plan is almost back to day one, and so okay, well, how are we starting up again? We have to look at what businesses are going to be opening, how much beer are we going to need, who's going to put us on tap, where, and there's just such an unknown. I've got staff that say, when do I get to come back? Okay, the government has said we can start back up again. And I'm like, wow, guys, like, I would never have started a business with 20 employees. Last summer we were up to 50 employees. Right now I have 4. And that, I guess that brand new business plan starting from day one. And essentially, I think all of the businesses in the world have to think about their businesses as starting from day one. And now I don't know what I don't know
Yeah.
about the future of post-coronavirus. So I think that's the most current fear that I have is I know how to make beer. I know how to market. I love getting out there and making a noise about fun things, but when you don't know what's coming, it's a really tough thing. And I think this coronavirus has shown us that within a couple of days, the world can put us on our ass, and there's a really important lesson coming out of this on how we protect ourselves moving forward from the next thing that knocks us off that comfortable, pedestal again, right?
Yeah, totally. So tell me,
Yeah.
when I'm listening to your talk, you've always also sound like you have this heart for community, right? And it's
Oh yeah.
so talk about that, and not just the standard, like why that's important, but how that has kind of driven you and made you who you
Yeah.
are today.
Well, man, I had an epiphany like no other when when the laws in Alberta changed. I looked back and I thought, why now? Why with us? And what I chalked it up to, and I think is a really freaking important lesson that I've used so many times over and over. The reason it worked was not because I was screaming and yelling about Tool Shed. It was because of a genuine, authentic passion for this collaborative benefit of the whole community around us. And everybody that's out there watching this right now, or who will, and I mean, everybody in the world has a real heightened bullshit meter. I can look you in the eyes and I know what you're telling me. I know what you want me to hear. And I know what I perceive from what you're saying. And I know if you're full of crap. We all have bullshit meters. And so I can tell if you're authentic or not. I know when you're trying to sell me something. I know, right? So when you see somebody who's genuinely and authentically trying to do something for the betterment of the community around, the impact that that had on the community was so impressive that I know what got those laws changed was that everybody rallied behind that genuine, authentic cause. So we fast forward a few years, and I'm trying to get beer into the Stampede. Well, Ed McNally at Big Rock is a hero in the craft beer community, and he tried his whole life to get beer into the Stampede, and was never able to. Unfortunately, he passed without ever seeing his beer at the Stampede, and what a horrible thing. And people were fighting with the Stampede and arguing, and you know, if I were to think back to getting those laws changed, we didn't sue the provincial government. We didn't fight with them. We didn't trash talk them. We told a positive, amazing story about what Alberta was trying to accomplish. So if I were to employ that same way of thinking for getting beer into Stampede, I have to think of, why am I trying to do this? It's just not about me. So, you know, so I went on the news. I went again. If you look me up online, you'll see all these videos of me screaming and yelling in CBC and CTV. And here's the story I told. I said, do you know who AE Cross is? We've probably all heard that name. Most people think it's just a school, but AE Cross is one of the big four. And a lot of people might not even know what the big four is, but these are the four dudes in Calgary that there are so many incredible things they accomplished in the city. One of them was starting the Calgary Stampede. And so Guy Hudick and AE Cross, there's a lot of guys that were, four guys that were part of this thing, but AE Cross, if you go down to Inglewood, Rouge Restaurant, that was his house. And do you know what he did for work? He was a freaking local craft brewer. He
awesome.
started the Calgary Brewing and Malting Company. So
Wow.
Calgary beer with the Buffalo. That's AE Cross's business. So now in Inglewood, it's right by Zinn there. It's that big, it's a storage unit now. But that was the Calgary Brewing and Malting Company. So
Wow.
the guy that started the Stampede started it to show the world about what the Western lifestyle of Calgary, Alberta looked like. He wanted to show off local products. He wanted to show off his beer and all I get goosebumps from why the Stampede started. So can you imagine today, him looking down on us and going, his business was shut down. It was bought by Molson and shut down, you know, and so too, the Stampede had turned into these global, you know, multinational conglomerates that buy out exclusive agreements, you know, and so I'm thinking about Paddle Boys barbecue sauce is a local great story. They should be at Stampede. Village Ice Cream and all this stuff. And it's just these huge companies and Budweiser. So if you come from anywhere in the world to go to the Calgary Stampede, you're drinking Budweiser, AE Cross rolling in his grave, guaranteed. So my story was, we got to get the Stampede back to its roots. So AE Cross started this thing to show off the Western lifestyle and local companies that I don't even care if Tool Shed's not in it. And that story resonated. My staff didn't even know that that's how the Stampede started. And when the community hears that story, they go, we're going to start a petition. I'll boycott the Stampede until they start supporting local businesses again and stop sending all of that money from those sales off to other countries. That money should be staying in this province through local businesses that get to show off their products and get a benefit from all this travel into the city. So that story resonates.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about me. It's about every business in the city. So I think hopefully to answer your question, what I've learned about the importance of this collaboration and the community is, without a genuine focus on it, and that, you know, that authentic approach to when we raise the tide, all the boats float, you're just not going to get it done. I could have gone and screamed and yelled at the Stampede and nothing would have got done. Right. And so to be able to say, here's how the whole community benefits, everybody goes, shit, yeah, we're in. Right. And it's a pretty cool, it's a great lesson to have learned, because now every single approach that I have to go after, again, I'm sure you've heard about us fighting for our patio. If you look up online, we fought for 11 and a half months, following the proper channels with City Hall, couldn't get our patio going. And so same approach. It was about every small business trying to get permits through City Hall. I'm not trying to get my patio fixed. I'm trying to make it easier for small businesses to get shit done through the permitting office at City Hall. That got people excited about helping us. And in one day, our patio was done. right? Like, so screw our own selfish needs. It's only when we embrace collaboration and that community spirit that you get the support from the community around you. And people literally hoist you up on their shoulders and say, I'm for this, let's get this done. And it's incredibly impactful.
So good.
So that's, yeah, my love for community and supporting like collaborative, relationships is based on seeing how effective it can be when it's genuine and authentic, right?
That's so good, man. That's so good.
Yeah.
And so, I just love that. So if I'm a entrepreneur, I'm a small business owner, maybe I'm just a person who's a one man band or whatever, what kind of advice do you have for them through this? I mean, and I know that's a tough
Yeah.
one because there's
No.
so many types of business, but
Yeah.
what's a couple of things you could say to them, because you've
Totally.
clearly done
It's
some
actually
stuff.
not a tough one. That's a great question. I think it's the best question because I had an epiphany one day doing a brewery tour here. I tell the stories and I'm like, oh, you should hear the story of this beer. It's great and it's fun. You laugh. And somebody walked in here and they looked up at my place and they just went, ugh, these guys are well funded. And I just sunk. I heard it and he walked out and I was just so stunned because at the time I had 3 mortgages in foreclosure. And like on one house, like I had remortgaged and I was about to lose everything. Nobody knows the pain that we're going through as entrepreneurs. And I didn't break down and cry, but I broke down and was vulnerable and honest with that tour. And I was like, guys, this tour is changing. I want you guys to know the reality of what I've been through. I get goosebumps again thinking about like that one tour changed everything because the looks on people's faces when all of a sudden I was real with what actually is. Nobody wants to hear, oh, look at my big fancy freaking business. That's all bullshit. That's a skin we put on to try to say, look at me. But when you're actually honest with people about what you're going through, what you actually get is an incredible connection with other entrepreneurs where they go, oh, great, we can lower our guards and talk honestly, and I can actually benefit from this exchange now. Here's what I'm going through because I wasn't going to admit it until you were honest and vulnerable with me about what's going on in your business. So I had more satisfaction in my lifetime from being able to help fellow entrepreneurs brainstorm and figure solutions out in their businesses by starting the conversation with honesty and vulnerability and with the reality of what we go through, which breaks down that barrier. It breaks down people's, inability to talk honestly. It stops us from being honest with each other. So my advice to people is get those great conversations going with other entrepreneurs. You almost have to have an entrepreneurial support group, not so we can bitch. It's not about bitching about how tough we've got it, but being honest with the struggles and the challenges that we go through. I referenced Alex Pudici, who runs Work Nicer to you already. He's one of my best friends, and I've only met him since I started Tool Shed. He was bugging me forever to use this facility for his charity event. And, at first I was like, here's another guy trying to get my brewery for free, whatever. But when I found out, like, he runs the 100 Men Who Give a Damn, and he's an incredible guy. He runs a co-working space called Work Nicer. And in the meantime, or in his off time, he runs this great charity event where he gives up $10,000 every quarter through 100 people who donate micro sums to great local charities. And so when I go out for lunch with him, I go, tell me what you're struggling with. And he goes, here's the thing. Now, I don't let him have a pity party. I push him and I challenge him. And then he's like, your turn. I'm tired of talking about me. What's your challenges? And I'm honest with them, right? We would never try to one up each other. You need almost an entrepreneurial shoulder to cry on and a really impressive support group that challenges you. And I do love that concept of the people that have gone through what we've gone through before. When I look for mentors and people that I want to talk to about business, I look for people who have scaled businesses and have done the things that I'm trying to do. And I go, I'm nothing. Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm an idiot. I'm a freaking pilot who then went into IT. Now I'm this business owner. Oh my goodness, I'm such a random idiot. Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. And if you're humble and vulnerable and authentic with other entrepreneurs, it's incredible what kind of brainstorming comes out of almost out of a group of people who you almost have permission to be honest and open and creative and brainstorm in a really impressive way. Hey,
That's so good, man. That's so
so
good. Honest and vulnerable and humble. So, um, and I don't want to put you on the spot here too much, but for a lot of entrepreneurs right now, and we're talking, I don't know, like hair salons, massage therapists, even restaurant owners.
mm,
What kind of advice? What would you say to them? Because they're trying to. I feel like in some ways we've put them in this terrible position where
yeah,
everybody's like COVID, 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 stay at home, stay at home. And now it's like, hey, let's reopen. And these guys, gals, they want to reopen, not
yeah,
because they want to kill somebody with COVID, but because they've got a payroll to make, they've got rent to
right,
pay, and because you don't go into business unless you're passionate, right? Like you
right,
do that, and yet on the other side, it's like, well, you have to navigate this massive new health reality, and
totally,
and I think a lot of them are scared, right? Like I think it's
yeah,
at least the ones I talk to, it's kind of like they don't know what to do,
mm,
and the government has been somewhat helpful, but you would know better than I that
totally, yeah,
what the government thinks they're doing and what's actually hitting people at the ground level is often two
yeah.
different things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a big piece missing right now where it's like, okay, so we're going to be allowed to open based on the government, but what does that mean? What are we allowed to do? And so now that we're about to be allowed to, our staff had a big conversation with, okay, so just because the government says we're allowed to, I don't think we should open. Maybe we should just keep closed for a few more weeks. And my first instinct is, you definitely don't own a business then if you just think for no reason we should just stay closed for 2 weeks. I'm horrified at how long I've been closed down for. But I have to be respectful and I have to give, I guess I have to take into that concept that, people are going to be uncomfortable. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if people are going to Corona shame the businesses that start up day one, or say, oh my goodness, thank goodness, a restaurant that I can finally go out to. Um, but I think it's all in the messaging on how and why we do the things that we do. So I saw something really awesome on Twitter. One of my favorite Twitter accounts in the city is that knife shop in Inglewood, Knifeware. Kevin Kent is a dear friend of mine. I love him incredibly as a friend and as a mentor and as an incredibly entertaining social media personality. He
Okay.
picks fights and he just doesn't care what people think. And
And
I
so
love watching
what's
him.
his Twitter handle again?
It's Knife Nerd.
Okay. Knife
Yeah.
nerd.
Now, he made an incredible comment the other day and he said, I'm in the same boat as everybody. I'm scared about what possible to reopen means. So what I did was I started doing some research in Europe and other places that have gone through SARS and gone through these other pandemics that have come out of this time, and the protocols that they put into place. And he's like, I want to open, so I'm going to make the effort to take the next step and do the research on how to do it the most responsible and safe and healthy way. So it's not just he's trying to open up for his business. It was very evident that what was authentic and genuine and honest about Kevin was that he wants, first and foremost, the safety of his customers and his staff. And so he did the extra step that nobody had heard of yet. What does everybody that's done this before do above and beyond? And so the responses to that post were things like, I don't need a new knife, but I'm going to buy one because of this post.
Nice.
And so that's the type of thing that is just amazing to see, is that he got in front of it and said, I'm going to go the next step. I'm going to show my authentic, genuine heart for safety and the health of my customers and my staff. It was very obvious that it was genuine, because you can smell a fake a mile away, right?
Yeah.
And that was an incredible approach. So I think truly it's going to be messaging. We were one of the breweries that stayed open for growler fills when most places shut down. So people would say, oh, should you be filling growlers? And we said, I love that question. And here's our protocol that we've put in place. We have a hot sterilization system and a sanitizer. So it's going to take you a little longer to get your growler fill, but we're going to sterilize every piece of glass that comes in our building. Everybody that comes in has to go through these steps. We wash our hands, you sterilize your growlers, up. We go through the process, and people are either going to say, I love that you've taken those steps to support the things that we want, like getting my hair cut and getting my nails done and getting back to these services that we need. I think that from a customer standpoint, everybody just needs to know that they can feel safe coming into a business. So it's
Yeah.
up to us to create that messaging that we have thought of it, we've gone above and beyond, we're creating a safe and healthy environment for you. And we're eager to get open, like come and support us. Like we need it. That's part of that vulnerability again. Like we need to open up to stay in business. It helps people to say, I gotta go and support this hair salon or whoever else is out there, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think that there's a lack of rationality on all sides of it. Like, it's interesting to
Very
me
much so,
that
yeah.
we're kind of like, oh yeah, Costco can stay open and Walmart can stay open and Home Depot, which is great, by the way, thank God.
Yeah,
But the small shops, like as if somehow these big places have some insight into how to handle the situation. So I kind of look at it and say, like, thank God, let's keep Walmart open. But why are you penalizing somebody for being small? Because in a small
yeah,
environment, as a customer, I've got my eyeballs on everything that's going on. Where listen,
yeah,
I've worked big retail. There is all
yeah,
kinds of stuff that goes on in the back that you don't know anything
yeah,
about. I can promise
right.
you. And so, it's funny to me that people are like, "Oh, I can't go to a restaurant." I'm like, "But you just went to Costco." Like,
Yeah,
don't you think that the restaurant is going to put the same level of effort into making you feel safe that Costco puts in? And why the heck wouldn't they?
right.
Because this is often their life savings, right? This is their
Totally.
whole deal.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, like I said, it's in the messaging. So I don't understand a lot of the protocols that, like, if I go grocery shopping, it's very awkward and I feel uncomfortable because every store's got a different system.
Yeah, I
In one
know.
store, I can
Yeah.
put stuff on the belt, and the other store, they go, "What are you doing? We gotta
Yeah.
wash it between every customer." And I'm like, "Great, but I touched it, I put it on the belt, and then you touched it. Like you washing the belt does nothing." And I'm trying to think through logically why the protocols are the way they are at each store. And if you don't know how each store's protocols are, they're like yelling at you, and I
Yeah.
feel like an idiot. And
Yeah.
so it's very hard. But again, it goes back to it's the fear of the unknown. We don't know what the best approach is. So I think people are going to have a lot more tolerance than I think even they're admitting on the social platforms.
I think so too.
Yeah, we have to be careful, I think, of those social platforms because I think predominantly the people that are very outspoken on things like Facebook are people that are like, I won't go to a restaurant until June or whatever. I'd be fearful to post and say, I can't wait to go to my favorite pub. I would
Yeah.
never write that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
so so I'm eager to see how many other people are out there that can't wait to get back to normal life and aren't willing to put their thoughts onto social media. So it kind of skews the data on what we see as what people are thinking out there in the city. So
I
I'm
love it.
pretty eager to see how it rolls out, and we're gonna see pretty quickly.
We are. I love it.
Yeah.
So, just as we conclude, any final thoughts, Graham? Just you've been such a great, open, vulnerable sharing. Appreciate that so much. What else can you tell us? And then we'll let you get back to what you're doing there.
Well, for me, obviously, my two hugest passions are everything Alberta and supporting local businesses, right? So when we were trying to get this thing done, we found research that showed that every dollar you spend on local craft beer contributes $1.12 to that local economy. And I mean,
Wow.
that's trucking and that's malt houses and farmers, and how much impact that has in the community is incredible. So, and I don't mean just supporting my brewery. When I go to BC, I support local breweries in British Columbia, and I love that thought of going out of your way to find that small local business to support. And I think that this I think the greatest takeaway that this thing has shown us is people are back making bread at home. People are looking at cooking,
Yeah.
in a in
Yeah.
a in a really cool way, and looking out
Amazing.
the door and saying that there's crops growing out there. What the hell are they?
Yeah.
What if I could get some local crop that's that fresh, that's right out my back door? And I love the thought that this has maybe brought us out of a over consumerism, type way of thinking, and
Yeah.
down to, I can't believe how little money I spent over the last couple months. We just shut everything off, all of the monthly things that just kept coming off my credit card, and just said, okay, we're gonna just hunker down. I'm not gonna spend money. We're gonna support local businesses that I cherish because I know they need the support right now.
Yeah.
But why does it take coronavirus for me to know that the pizza shop down the road really needs my support?
Yeah.
And so I would implore everybody to continue to make those decisions. in the years after this thing goes away, that we get back to these basics, and making food at home with your family has been one of my favorite outcomes of this thing. Getting back to those really cool, really cool practices of we're making pizza and we're
Yeah.
making our own bacon and we're,
Yeah.
doing these fun things. And then when we do eat out, we make a very conscious decision. What restaurant do I choose to support today? That's a very conscious decision that I didn't think enough about before going into this. So yeah,
Love it.
that's my challenge to people is
Love it.
make some really cool conscious decisions on what you choose to support.
So good, man. So good.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Graham. You've been amazing. Thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah. And how can, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you or follow you on social media, where do you like them to go?
Oh yeah, I mean, all of our social for Tool Shed is at Tool Shed Beer,
Okay.
and my personal one is Sherman Deluxe. And I mean, on our website you can see all the cool products that we're delivering right now. And Sherman Deluxe has no E.
Okay.
It's actually a foosball move.
Oh,
I'm a huge foosball fan. But anyway, lots of fun stuff to support Spud right now too on their website. They're going to have lots of cool new products going on too. So because I mean, they're neighbors of ours, and I'm in love with the collaboration that we're doing with them. I implore people to follow them, support them as well, because that's all awesome, sustainable, local produce and stuff
good.
that they're putting out there too.
So good. Thanks so much, Graham. And so folks, please follow Graham on social media, just stay in touch, Tool Shed Beer and Sherman Deluxe. I think it's great. And for sure, we do this because we want to help and we want to support. We know that, it's a tough time, and we're going to get through this. Of course we are. But, having the support of each other is really important. So if you're interested in reaching out, reach out to me. You can reach out to Cynthia, Connie. They work with me, and we'd love to support you in any way. And of course, no cost. This is really just about supporting you through this. Next week, our guest is a gentleman who I know fairly well. His name's Rod McDonald, and we work closely together in the Certified Coaches Federation. He's the CEO, and so he's going to be our guest next week. Rod has done a lot, not only in business, but also in life. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from Rod and really enjoying what he's got to say. So you can go to businessresilience.now.com and you can register for that webinar. And just final words to you, Graham. What do you got to say for us on the way out the door here?
I just a last word of encouragement. Don't let this coronavirus get you down. Get through those moments of grieving and start thinking about that final step in the grieving process. Do epic shit.
Love it, man. Do epic shit, and don't get tripped up. All the time there's opportunities to quit, but just don't. Because you'll get through it. So thanks, everybody. Thanks so much, Graham. It's been amazing.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, take care.
Take care.